Come on then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay.
Morning all. Hope we're all well. A little bit blustery up here in the Lincolnshire Wolds this morning. Not sure how long we're going to be. The reluctant dog is at the moment pressing on. So hopefully I'm going to have 20 minutes just to talk to you a little bit about last night's game. So just so you're aware, I struggle at the minute to get the game written up the evening that I get home. So I did write up the first half last night before went to bed. I'm hopefully going to get that out to you in time for late afternoon, depending on what happens. Tonight, Ben and I are recording the podcast. Chris and I are away this weekend in Germany, so we shall be recording a podcast tonight to get it out to you nice and early. Hopefully going to have somebody from Chippenham Town talking on that as well. That's what my tough there's all about. So a few bits coming up. So last night, home to Accrington Stanley, they'd lost 5 on the bounce. When you look at the teams they've lost to, that probably, it's not great losing 5 on the bounce, but when you look at the teams they've lost to, it's also not like it's, Burton, Morecambe or whatever. 1-1 draw. I thought we were worth the win, to be honest. I thought we struggled a little bit in the final third, which I'm going to touch upon in a moment. But I thought we largely controlled the game without being impressive. I thought we had created enough chances to score from open play. We did at least work their goalkeeper. That's an improvement on Port Vale. And it's an improvement on Charlton at home. And to a degree, it's an improvement on Sheffield Wednesday and stuff like that. You expect all of that. You expect it to be an improvement. Let's make no mistake, Accrington Stanley are the worst team we've seen this season at St Bank. And we've seen Charlton, who were woeful. But Accrington came here with a very, very clear game plan, and that was kick, aggravate, waste time, maybe play for a draw, maybe try and nick a win. And I think it was notable they were wasting time before the hour mark, which is when obviously Mark Kennedy got his booking, and then as soon as our goal went in, they didn't have any injuries. At one point they had 3 players down before we scored, and they didn't have any injuries, amazingly, between 60 and 85 minutes. And then as soon as they scored, they were dropping like flies again. Look, game management's part of the game. You will not get me being critical for something that I think other teams do. But remember, when we played Ipswich, we got a lot of credit from their fans, for the way we managed the game. It wasn't as blatant as going down with cramp. It wasn't as blatant as the things that they were doing. I had a lot of respect for Accrington Stanley for how they conduct themselves in this division on a limited budget, for how they stay competitive year after year. And last night, a lot of that went. Hats off to their fans, 45 fans that came. I thought they made a lot of noise. I thought that they were a credit to their club. It's a pity that the 15 or so players, manager and referee, were not such a credit to their club throughout the game. And that might sound like bitterness or saltiness, and I might get all football Twitter going, pour more salt on it or whatever. It's not about that at all. I like to see a game of football. I like to see teams who are plucky and who manage games and who fight hard. But I like to see them do it the right way. Look, I'm going to cover this in my write-up, but Doug Tharp shouldn't have been on the pitch by the end of the game. He wasn't, to be fair. He was substituted, but he shouldn't have been on the pitch because he's the player that's taken Ben House out, which I think was borderline red card. He got a yellow for it. House looked like he was going to go through one-on-one last man. The foul was, they call it agricultural, to say the least. It was a yellow. It was borderline. Same players then clipped Jack Diamond's heels as he's gone through in on goal. For me, it's a second yellow card if the first one isn't a red. And if the referee's gone in his mind, the first one's either a red or a yellow, and he's gone yellow. Surely, for me, I think the ref's bottled it. And I'll tell you why I think he bottled it. And I'm going off, I know, on a tangent straight away. He's bottled it because the first thing that every Accrington player, watch the replay back, does, they don't protest the foul. They know it's a foul, but they start pointing that it's outside the area because it's borderline. And for me, that puts an element of doubt in Ross Joyce's head. They are, they're only human referees. So the element of doubt is then, well, if I have got it wrong and I send the player off as well, and I think that's probably why he hasn't done it. And Steve Freeston says it to me here. The ref was ridiculously petty last night. He was until it mattered. He wasn't until it mattered. Because for me, I in my write-up, actually, I think I've put that he didn't make any match-changing decisions. He did by not sending off Doug Tharm. Already on a yellow, commits that foul on Diamond. As Diamond's going through on goal, that is a yellow card. Anywhere else on the pitch, a deliberate trip last night, Ross Joyce was looking to punish with a card. I can't understand how he's not sent him off, apart from the fact he's bottled it and he's a weak man. And I said the same thing when we drew 2-2 with Notts County, way back when Lee Frecklington made his first start back for the club. Ross Joyce was the referee, and he was shocking. He was shocking that day. He was shocking last night. Look, you can't blame the referee for us not winning the game. Had he sent Doug Tharm off, the penalty goes in. I don't think that they go and score, but you can't blame him because we've still got 30 minutes against a really poor side to go and kill them off. I thought we tried. Jack Diamond had a shot where I think Mark Kennedy said on the radio, anywhere else it goes in, watch it back, it does. Anywhere else it goes in. He's worked his way through. Jamie Robson has a decent effort. I thought we played well in the second half. A lot of people are gonna dispute that. I know people have opinions. That's fine. First half wasn't great. Second half, I thought we played well. There was elements of the play that are breaking down, but we're 21 games in to Mark Kennedy's reign, and I think that the signs are there that we're making progress. We're in a better position in terms of points per game now than we were at this stage last season. I think that's telling as well. When up until the last two games, we'd had a really tough start, and actually the tough start is where we've performed better. In the last two games, we've taken a point where you thought, well, if we take 4 from the last two games, we would have, that would have been great. And if we'd taken 4 from the last two games, we'd be knocking on the door of the top 7. We're not that side yet. We're not a top 7 side yet. And I think, when we were talking last night, I think somebody said on the radio, had we won, we'd be 11th or 9th or something like that. That's not where we are. We know that. So where did it go wrong last night? Well, to a degree, I'm loath to say that, because when you say where did it go wrong, it comes across as if it was a disaster, and it wasn't a disaster. Saturday was poor. We showed a lack of attacking intent in key areas. We didn't defend a routine kind of set piece. Well, keeper probably to blame. Routine goal. Well, keeper probably to blame on Saturday. Last night, well, not going and killing the game off. Yes, I don't think it was through a lack of trying, so I don't think that particularly went wrong. For me, people are saying, for what I'm seeing, people are saying the attack, we lack inventiveness in attack. The players aren't right. I think Emily Rooks commented here, could we have brought Draper on for Garrick, at least having an out-and-out striker for the final? I get that. I do get those points. And yeah, I probably would like to have seen Draper for the final 10 minutes. Might have been a case of bringing Diamond or Vernon off, putting Garrick out wide and putting Draper in the middle. It might have been, especially after the goal went in, you think we could chase it. But I think Mark Kennedy's first thought is if they've got the wind in their sails from scoring now, they may go on and score again. So I can kind of understand why not. I don't think the problem was the front three. I actually thought Charles Burnham had a good game last night. I don't think he was man of the match. But I think he's a player that gets the ball, runs at players, created a chance out of nothing for himself in the first half. I thought Jack Diamond was out of sorts last night. And on the radio, Mark Hone was kind of enthusing about Jack Diamond, how great he was, how he's the main focal point. I thought actually positionally he looked very naive. There was times where he almost tackled Jamie Robson, and I think trying to get Jack Diamond used to playing in that do we call it a 3-4-3 with the overlapping fullbacks, think probably needs a little bit more work. But actually there was some promise there. For me, the issue comes in the midfield, and I thought last night the midfield didn't work particularly well. I thought we conceded possession in the midfield very easily. I thought we found it particularly hard to go and win possession in the midfield when we had lost it. Lasse Sorensen's had a really good start to the season. I thought that he was weak last night. I thought his first mind is always to turn his back on the opposition goal and look backwards. Now, I have no problem with playing backwards. You will not get me saying the ball goes back to the keeper too often, because we retain possession that way. It's part of the game plan. I get it. But if there's something better on, and there was at times, it shouldn't be the first thought. And there was a moment, and I think it was in the second half, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but there was a moment where Lass got the ball, turned his back on play, went backwards, only for us to go actually forwards again and win a throw-in, and Mark Kennedy called him over, and after that he seemed a little bit more positive. Is it a fear? I don't know, but there was just, I think, a little bit too much of that. And also we were a little bit weak in midfield. Their goal, when the ball comes out, 2 players come out to try and block that ball, and neither of them do. Mark Kennedy talked about an individual mistake on Radio Lincolnshire. I've watched the goal back a couple of times. I can't see the individual mistake. The keeper does what he can do and punch. Maybe he should leave it and let a player head it away. I don't know, but I don't think you can blame the keeper. Lass is the player that's come out. We haven't stopped the cross. It's that simple. And don't stop crosses, you concede goals. And if you don't control the midfield, you don't score as many goals. So I still think that needs some work. Actually, I think Sanders and Virtue has worked relatively well up until Saturday. I don't think the players that were dropped purely on form. I think that the players probably sat out from the fact we've been playing Saturday, Tuesday quite a bit as well. So I think that last night's team selection was as much a symptom of our kind of fixtures recently as it was a conscious decision to drop players or bring new players in. I'd really like to see Jack Davenport get a run out. I keep talking about Jack Davenport. I have this awful feeling that we're going to get to January. He's going to have like 4 appearances, 2 from the bench, and not have had an opportunity to impact this first team. And I really think that he could, because I really think that he's the sort of player who will show the composure in the middle of the park to put his foot on the ball and pick the right forward pass. Liam Bridcut was great at it, and of course he was. Played for Sunderland and Leeds and Chelsea. I mean, he'd been right up there. He'd been played with the best of the best. But he was good at knowing when to go forwards and when to go backwards. And I don't think it's any coincidence that some of our best performances and our best results under Michael Appleton came when Liam Bridcut was in the team, because the style of play that we play, you need to be able to make the right decision and not be swayed either by the crowd or by fear. And a player like Liam Bridcut could ping a pass 50 yards, but he wouldn't do it for the sake of it. At times we go long for the sake of it at the moment, and at other times we go back for the sake of it. And it's easy to say there isn't the bravery to make the right choice. I think in key areas we're making at times the wrong choice, and people then say that's a tough watch. Look, last night wasn't a tough watch. Charlton was a tough watch a few weeks ago. 1 shot on goal for each team. We had 7 shots on target last night. Okay, you take the penalty out of it, it's 6. Do you think about Jack Diamond, Charles Vernon, Jamie Robson? They all forced the goalkeeper into saves. Now, we were all critical, massively critical, when we don't attack in the right way. We are. When we don't have just 1 second, Charlie, should we go back because it's muddy there, mate? Look at this, where he wants to walk at the minute. And I'm going to have to wade through it. Yeah, so we're critical of a lack of attacking intent. I think we showed some attacking intent last night. So for people to then say it's a difficult watch and we showed no creativity, 7 shots on target, and they weren't wild pot shots. Okay, there was a couple of shots that weren't brilliant, but these weren't wild pot shots that we were having at goal. We created some half decent chances. There wasn't the flow of chances, but 7 shots on target, it's not a bad return. And I just think if the midfield had been a little bit more attacking intent, a little bit more, I know I've written this, so I'm kind of preempting what I've already written, but a little bit more support for the wide players. So look at it like this. You've got your 3 at the back, you've got your wing backs and your attacking kind of wingers. So you've got 2 players out on the wing. And what we're trying to do is work space down the flank in order to get across into the box. And I'll come on to the end result in the box in a minute. So Jamie Robson's got the ball. He looks ahead. There's Jack Diamond. There's 2 Accrington players. So what he then needs is the outball. He needs the outball if he's coming down the left, to his right. And for me, that has to be provided by either Ben House. If Ben House is providing the outball, then unfortunately, he's not in the box when the cross comes in. So the midfielder has to be there. Or the midfielder, Virtual Sorensen, whoever's playing on the left-hand side of the 2 midfielders, needs to come across and be the outball. Now, if he is, his first thought has then got to be, can I work it then into the space behind the gap, into the space behind the defence, the gaps through the lines, to get Jack Diamond in, or Jamie Robson for the return ball, depending on where he runs. Because if he comes inside, Robson goes down the channel, he's got Diamond outside of him, there's 2 opportunities, stretches the defence. That's got to happen. But what was happening last night all too often was either, and I'm using Robson and Diamond, but it's the same on the other flank for Vernon and Paul, either they've got the ball, they look ahead, the pass isn't on, they're turning inside. When the ball's on, it's coming inside, and then the first thought is stroke it back to the centre halves. And so there's then no point. So Robson, the number of runs that Jamie Robson made last night, in between the lines where he got nothing from it and he's had to come all the way back. I was just counting them out. They were just infinite. The other issue then is if you do have the midfield having the support. So the midfield have offered the support. You've worked the ball into that crossing position. You've then got to have somebody in the area. Now, it's got to either be another midfielder, or the midfielder that's played in the early part of the move has got to make the progressive run into the area, or you've got to have a centre forward feeding on the scraps. Now, I thought Ben House actually had a decent game last night. I thought he worked well. You're never going to get the best out of Ben House when you're pumping long balls into him, because he looks about 5'11", and he was just marshalled by a defender. An aerial duels, I'm pretty sure that we will have been relatively poor on last night. That's where you need Tom Hopper, or it's where you need the striker we didn't sign, unfortunately, in the transfer window. And it's the second year in a row we've talked about it. But you don't necessarily need the new striker if Hopper stays fit. It's not about not having a clinical edge. Ben House has scored goals from open play this season, poachers goals as well. Jack Diamond has scored goals from open play. Vernon has actually got one. Jordan Garrick, I think there's still got to be more for him. Let's not write Jordan Garrick off, by the way, this season. It was a real danger writing a player off too quickly. Morgan Whittaker was written off by a whole group of fans last season. How's he doing at Plymouth now? Never write a player off for having a bad spell. I've seen somebody on the chat saying the manager clearly doesn't fancy Draper. Why? Draper's only just come back to fitness. He only played his first game a week last Tuesday. Why are we then thinking about pitching him in, putting the expectation on his shoulders only for him to have 15 tough minutes and fans write him off as well? It's too easy to write players off. And I can understand why, like Gary, I think Gary sits not far from me, I'm not sure, says Draper should have been brought on for Garrick. Yes, I think Draper should have been brought on, but not for Garrick, because Garrick had only come on as a substitute. I think probably in the latter stages, you bring Diamond or Charles Vernon off. We've got a game on Saturday where arguably we'll rest some players. It could be a fallacy. It's always tough to rest players and take a weakened team to a team who are going to be bang up for it. But you would imagine that probably, with no league points at stake, there's potential there for us to rest the likes of Diamond and Vernon, which is maybe why we didn't do it. But we shall have to see. So look, the overriding thing here, and I don't want to ruin the podcast later and my article, so for fear of repeating myself, but actually I don't think we were that bad last night at all. I think it was a tough first half, but I think it's a lad called Jonathan Ricketts on Twitter this morning said, you only ever focus on what your team do. Oh, the light's terrible there. So when we're talking about get it forward or we need to be more creative or etc., you can only play to a degree how the opposition let you play. So if Accrington come and want to shut up shop and kick you and keep it tight and there's a lack of space, it's not always easy to then say, right, well, we need to create more. If football was that easy, nobody would lose a game, would they? So, I think the first half, it would be nice to have got at them with a little bit more intensity, a little bit more expansion. But they're a strong team and they look to hit you on the break. So if we've got at them in the first 15 minutes and then we go up and score, they go up and score, then it becomes a tougher prospect, as it was for Ipswich against us. So I can understand us keeping it tight early doors. I can understand us from a functional point of view not wanting to get beat, honestly. And I know that people say, oh, it doesn't make great viewing. Last night was much better viewing than some of the home games that we've played in recent weeks. It was. They won't all be Derby. I keep saying to people, it won't all be fist pumps and Sweet Caroline and things like that. It won't be. It's an attritional league. And there are a lot of teams who I think are probably not much better than League Two quality. Accrington aren't, no doubt whatsoever. And the fact that we've struggled to beat them does show you where we are. And that's the realistic. If we'd won last night and we'd been in 11th position, I don't think there's a fan looking at this now who thinks that that's where we'll be at the end of the season. And where we are now, and I can't remember the league table, 13th, 14th, you offer me that now, 8 points clear of the bottom four in May, I'll take it. And to achieve that, and I'll put it in inverted commas because some people will say that that's not achievement, but to achieve that, we're going to draw and lose games at home that people think we should win. But we're also going to win games away. You don't go away to Barnsley and Ipswich and get those highs and have everybody saying how brilliant you are. You don't, in my opinion, you don't get to celebrate those if you are unwilling to recognise positives that come out of results that don't always go your way. And last night was a result that didn't go our way, but the performance last night was not that bad. We had more attacking intent than we have in the past. We're still doing it without our captain, Tom Hopper. without arguably our most creative player who had a sensational August in Ted Bishop, without the man of the moment who scored 3 and 3, Danny Mandrew. And by the way, 2 of those were injuries that we saw happen on the pitch. So people can start talking about the number of injuries that we have. But for me, when it happens on a pitch, it's easier for a fan to digest. You know how that player got injured. You've seen how that player got injured. It doesn't make it any better in terms of having that player available, but you can understand it. When a player like Tom Hopper plays against Doncaster, has a not a great game, and then he's got the back problem, and you can't see it. There's kind of less, I hesitate to say goodwill, but less goodwill towards that player or towards the injury situation. And that's not detrimental to the player. It's just, oh, he's injured again because you haven't seen it happen. When you've seen poor old Ted Bishop limp off, Danny Mandrew limp off on an atrocious pitch on Saturday, you can kind of go, well, it happened. Do you know what I mean? And it's tough. It's tough for us that the area of the field that we probably need a little bit of an impetus, a little bit of a kick, is that final third. And actually, we're losing key players. Ted Bishop would probably play alongside Matty Virtue, maybe in a 2-man midfield, possibly. And if he did, then you've got the creativity, you've got the edge, you've got the player who's going to drop in, look for the ball. Tom Hopper would almost certainly play up top. No disrespect to Ben House, works hard, decent player, but Hops would almost certainly start because you put a long ball on Tom Hopper's head, he might win 1 in 3. You put it on Ben House's, he might win 1 in 4, 1 in 5, because he gets marshalled, and then unfortunately the phase of play switches back against you. But I thought it was a decent game. Like I say, I thought Accrington were appalling. Ethan Hamilton, I've got to say a word on Ethan Hamilton. It was right in front of us in the co-op stand. Whatethey happened, they call it handbags or whatever, whether that's a derogatory term, I don't know. But it was nothing. And then Hamilton, nobody's touched. I mean, if somebody's touched him, they've touched him on the chest. He's gone into somebody, they've touched him on the chest, and he's gone down holding his face. It was like, if you've seen the Rivaldo World Cup, I think 2002, if you've ever seen that, just like that. He's just gone down holding his face, and then he realizes what an idiot he's made. He stood up, but then he's tried to carry it on, because then he's held his face and gone down on his haunches as if trying to say to the referee, I've been caught in the face. He wasn't. I hate that. And Maguire used to do it, and it winds me up. If he's been touched in the face, okay, make a little bit of it. I can understand it. I don't like it, but I can understand it. But no touch whatsoever. It's appalling. Doug Tharm, as I've said, shouldn't have been on the field. The Ben House, I'm surprised actually if Ben House doesn't get home tonight and he's still got an Accrington player clinging to him. He was like picking up a tick in the grass. And holding is part and parcel of the game, it happens. But where it's so obvious and in front of the referee, I can't understand why he doesn't try and punish it once or twice. I've got no problem with Mark Kennedy's booking. Lots of people booed it because he's run on the pitch and kicked the ball back. You can't do it. You can't do it. I know why Mark's done it. He's done it because he keeps the crowd up. Judd does it because he kind of shows a little bit of passion and enthusiasm. So I can get with that, but I'm not going to have a pop at Ross Joyce for booking a player when he has to book him. It was the same with, I think it was Matty Virtue kicked the ball away in the first half and he got booked and everyone's gone, oh, what a weak booking. Unfortunately, at that point, the referee does not have a choice. He has to book him because he's kicked the ball away. However, then in the second half, one of their boys did it, not quite as far, but the same thing, just kick the ball away, no booking. Now, if you're booking Matty Virtue for time wasted in the first half when he has kicked the ball away, fair enough, but then you don't deal with it in the second, it's weak. I mean, the number of players that went down injured was shocking in the second half. And so where did he only get 5 minutes injury time from as well? And I'm not saying we would have scored late in the injury time, but the point is 30 seconds for a goal. There's 2 of those. There's a minute. 30 seconds per substitution. Now, I'm assuming per substitution break, not per player. So I think that there was probably another 4 of those, possibly. So you're talking another 2 minutes on top. So there's 3 minutes. So he's saying that there was only 2 minutes worth of added time. When their players were falling like flies. At one point, they had 3 of them down. I mean, it was embarrassing. So again, okay, I'm moaning about a minute or 2 at the end of a game here. But it just goes to show for me the complete incompetence of the referee. So it's poor. On another night, with a slightly different wind, we win that game 2 or 3-0. And everyone comes away and goes, well, we created 7 shots on target. We weren't really creative, but we've done the job. And I just think that's, it's fine lines. And I'd be happy to say how disappointed I was if we were bottom 4 or a point outside the bottom 4 and we were coming into that game. But we're not. And we're in a strong position. And we've made that by going and winning at the big teams. And again, there was a comment on the radio last night, and I'm not having a pop at anybody because people are entitled to opinions, saying you don't stay in this division by going and getting points from the big 6. You've got to beat the teams in and around you. I beg to differ. And okay, we won't beat them all, but if you played the top 6 and you beat all of the top 6 on 2 occasions, that would be what? 12 games, 3 points a game, 36 points. You wouldn't need to beat many teams in and around you to stay in the division on the back of that. The key is consistently winning games. And this Lincoln City team will win 1 or 2, lose 1 or 2, draw 1 or 2. And that's how it'll go between now and the end of the season. And it doesn't matter if you look at a month and you think they're all games we should win. We won't win them all. Because you'll look at games during a month and go, they're the games that we shouldn't get anything from, and we will. October's a case point. The problem is you have a good October. You beat Ipswich, you beat Barnsley, you hold Sheffield Wednesday, you hold Charlton, you're in a good position. It feels like you're making progress. Then you play Port Vale and Accrington and take 1 point, and suddenly the world's collapsing again. That's football. Not every single game is indicative of how the season's going to go. The season's 46 games, and there will be times when you won't even remember certain games. You won't remember where they fell in terms of a run of form. We're not in a bad place. We're in a stronger position than we were last season at this time, and that's with a transitional period. Last season, we should have been coming in off the playoff final, new signings, nucleus of a team. We should have been doing better. We weren't. This season, new manager, new approach, different players, different impetus, players trying to step up. And we're, okay, it's only a point or 2, but we're a point or 2 better off than we were at the same stage last season. That's progress. And it's progress in spite of changing manager. It's progress in spite of an arguably tougher looking division from the players that are coming up and coming down. So, right, let's have a quick look through some comments before we wrap up. So I'm not going to put all the hellos on the screen, but hello to Jimmy Atkin, hello to Terry Ram, how you doing, my friend? Hello to Emily, we've seen your comment already this morning. Thank you for watching. Steve Freeston, we might have said this, but I can't stress it enough. The ref was ridiculously petty last night. He was, until it mattered. Morning, Tracy. The second half was more energised. It was. Yeah, I think we don't tend to have decent first halves in games at the moment when we're at home, which is a problem, and home and away are very different. Chris Keneally, bitterly disappointed not to get 3 points, but positives. Burnham's best outing. Walsh superb. Robson's shown his qualities again. Garrick looked hungry last night when he came on. Wasn't as convinced, but you know, you never write a player off. Was gutted not to see Sanders start. Can't fault Lassie's effort, but he doesn't have the qualities to pick a pass. Yeah, I'm not going to do a last pile on, but he has had because he's had a strong start to the season. Just thought last night didn't work for him. Didn't work for him at all. Steve, morning, mate. You probably see your house from here, right up at the top. Ben has lots of ability, but not a centre forward. Only seems to play in second gear. Never lets defenders know he's around when he's in the air. Yeah, I think he is a player that you can see has come through an academy and still has a bit to learn in terms of centre forward. He has the ability. Thought he had a decent game. Just needs to be a bit stronger in this formation. Strikes me as the sort of player actually that'd be really good in a 2. But there we go. Matt Walker, morning, mate, or Matthew. Some people don't like being called Matt when they're a Matthew. Agreed Davenport should have played last night in place of a centre half. We need to play defensively against poorer teams in this league. We play too defensively, sorry, I beg your pardon, against poorer teams in this league, especially at home. I think poorer teams, I can see where you're coming from. And they were poor last night, when we do need to pick them out and beat them. But at the same time, last year we lose that game 1-0. In fact, last year we did lose that game 1-0. So there is a degree of progress there, I think, for us. Charlie Beeston. Charlie, all right, mate? Morning, Gary. Positives and negatives from last night for me, but not too disheartened. I'm not. I was walking back from the ground because I felt that it should be 3 points, not 1. But then you get home and you realise where we are in the grand scheme of things, and I just let it calm down and simmer a little bit. Sean, morning, mate. I thought it was a good performance, good attacking football. I thought that we played decent football. Yeah, I don't think it was brilliant, but I thought that it was enough. Play like that week in, week out at home. Fans might moan about it, but we'll win more games than we draw or lose. Connor messaged me last night. Hope you're well, pal. Here. I know that he agrees with me about, I think, some of the negativity. And look, people are entitled to their opinion, by the way. I'm not criticising anybody for their opinion. I just think sometimes the positive view, you're almost viewed as a happy clapper. And I've been really happy to be calling the team what it is. We were awful against Peterborough. We were awful against Cambridge. We were poor against Charlton. So there we go. Just timed that right. Steve says, like you say, football is all about opinions. If Diamond shot had not hit the keeper, who knew nothing about it, we go 2-0 up, and everyone was said we played Bristol brilliantly. Same game, different result. Yep, and there is a little bit of result bias when it comes to judging a football match. Like somebody messaged me after Port Vale and said we did nothing different against Port Vale than we did against Barnsley. And people said, well, we should have done because Port Vale are worse. Why? Because they were League Two last season and Barnsley were Championship. Both are in the division now. Not many points separate them. Why should it be any different? But it's result bias. We will beat Barnsley. We lost to Port Vale. So Barnsley's great. Port Vale's not. And I see it in the player rater on the Stacey West on the site a lot. Steve Turner, Monumate virtually punched the ball out of play, professional foul, which was deliberate to stop them taking a quick throw and us being in trouble. Yeah, and I do get that, and he deserved the booking, but he was holding up play. And I didn't think he handled the ball. He punched it away, but he didn't handle it while it was in play. So I do still think, in my opinion, when they were wasting time later on, one yellow card may have stopped it. I mean, the ref knew where his cards were, didn't he? He wasn't fussed about showing them. Kate says, can't really watch in a meeting at work. Just wanted to say that every year we underestimate Accrington every single year. A draw against them isn't a bad result, and that ultimately there are 11 sides below us that will be delighted to be only 13th. Absolutely spot on. Carl Mercer, hope you're well, my friend. I'm comfortable with where we're at. It's much better than a 2-0 away defeat at Welling. And finally, Brad Saunders, a great assessment as ever, could easily have been 3 points. I'm pleased there's a little pool of positivity here this morning. It wasn't perfect. I'm not jumping and clapping about because we've drawn 1-1 with Accrington. We could have won, we should have won. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's football's 3 famous words, isn't it? But at the end of the day, I think that we will be all right in the long term. And I just think we have to roll with the punches. We've got a break now. Hang on. 1 second. Charlie. We've got a break now from league action. There we go. Put him on his lead, which is upside down, which is a good thing. We go to Chippenham. A nice opportunity to enjoy a day out, hopefully get a decent result against the non-league team, forge another kind of relationship with the non-league team as we did with Bowers last season. A team that I have no doubt will not employ the same sort of arsehole tactics that Accrington did. We shall see. I doubt it very, very much indeed. And then we've got Plymouth coming up at home in a week on Saturday. Not sure when the Bristol City game is. I think that's towards the end of the month. So I think it's Plymouth and Morecambe next. Take 3 points from Plymouth and Morecambe, whichever way they come, you'll be happy. But I'll tell you this, if you win at Plymouth and lose at Morecambe, come FA Cup second round weekend, people will be moaning. Lose against Plymouth, beat Morecambe, people will be happy. It'll be the same outcome. Football's interesting, isn't it? Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. My match report will be up later. Hopefully podcast out tomorrow. There will be a hiatus on the site Friday over the weekend because I'm not here. Nobody to write up the Chippenham game for me, unfortunately. So I shall be back on Monday, and I'll be back on Sunday night, actually. So see you all then. Take care. Bye.